또 듣고 싶은 노래 있어요?
어떤 거?
Close your eyes for a second.
어떤 거 듣고 싶어요? 어떤 거?
Imagine you're standing in the middle of a stadium. 90,000 people around you. The air is thick, almost electric. You can feel the bass in your chest before the music even starts. And then, a single piano note drops. And just like that, without warning, without explanation, your throat tightens. Your eyes fill. And you realize, you're crying. Not because you're sad. Not because something went wrong. But because in this moment, surrounded by tens of thousands of strangers, you have never felt less alone in your entire life. This is what a BTS concert does to people. Not just ARMY. Not just fans who have followed them for years. But first-timers. Skeptics. People who were dragged there by their friends and swore they wouldn't feel a thing. They all cried. And today, we're going to talk about exactly why. Not just emotionally. But psychologically. Historically. And deeply personally. Because the answer isn't simple. And it deserves more than a simple explanation. My name is, your name. And this, is the story of BTS concerts. And the tears they leave behind. Before we get into the emotion, let's talk about the scale. Because to understand why BTS concerts feel the way they do, you first need to understand how massive they actually are. In 2019, BTS became the first Korean artist in history to sell out Wembley Stadium in London, not once, but twice. Wembley holds 90,000 people. Both nights were gone within minutes of tickets going on sale. That same year, their Love Yourself World Tour grossed over $196 million, making it one of the highest-grossing tours in history by an Asian act. Their 2021 permission to dance on stage concerts in Los Angeles, for nights at SoFi Stadium, were attended by over 200,000 people in total. The economic impact on the city of Los Angeles alone was estimated at over $50 million in just 4 days. And then there was Busan. October 15, 2022. A free outdoor concert. Yet to come in Busan. Over 100,000 people showed up in person. Over 49 million people watched the live stream simultaneously from around the world. 49 million. Let that number sit with you for a moment. To put that in perspective, the Super Bowl halftime show, one of the most watched live performances in American television history, averages around 100 to 120 million viewers. BTS drew nearly half that number, for a free concert in a port city in South Korea. These aren't just concert numbers. These are world record numbers. Cultural landmark numbers. Numbers that demand a question. What is it about these 7 men, and what they do on stage, that makes the entire world stop and pay attention? Let's start with the most obvious answer, the music. But I want to go deeper than just saying they're talented. Because that's not quite it. Or rather, that's only part of it. BTS songs were not written in a boardroom. They were not manufactured by a committee trying to predict what teenagers would stream. They were written in the middle of real pain. Real confusion. Real fear. RM, BTS's leader and primary lyricist, has spoken in interviews about writing music during periods of intense self-doubt, questioning his identity, his worth, his purpose. Suga, Min Yoongi, released a mixtape in 2016 under the name August D that contained some of the most raw, unfiltered descriptions of depression and anxiety ever put into a Korean pop song. He talked about panic disorder. About feeling invisible. About a version of himself he was ashamed of. These weren't concepts. These were confessions. And so when you're standing in a stadium, and Spring Day begins to play, that song about losing someone, about waiting for someone to come back, about grief that doesn't have a name, and you look around and see 80,000 people mouthing every single word. Something happens that goes beyond entertainment. Psychologists call it collective effervescence, a term coined by sociologist Emil Durkheim to describe the energy and harmony people feel when participating in a group event. It's the reason religious gatherings feel sacred. The reason sports stadiums erupt. The reason humans have gathered around fires and sung together since the beginning of civilization. Music, sung together, in a shared space, it is one of the most ancient and powerful human experiences that exists. BTS concerts trigger that. Fully. Completely. Every single time. But here's what makes it different from other concerts, other artists who also trigger that feeling. BTS songs are written specifically about the listener. Not in a generic way. In a specific, almost uncomfortably personal way. Magic Shop, a song written by Jungkook, is literally a song where BTS tells their fans, trade your pain for a place where you can rest. You Are, released in 2018, tells listeners that they are enough exactly as they are. Answer, Love Myself, performed as BTS's collaboration with UNICEF's anti-violence campaign, begins with the line, I'm the one I should love in this world. These aren't love songs about a person. They're love songs directed at the person listening. And when you hear those words in a stadium, sung by 7 people who built their entire career on saying those things, the walls come down. Every single time. If the music doesn't break you, the speeches will. This is something that separates BTS concerts from almost any other live performance experience I can think of. They don't just perform and bow. They sit down, sometimes on the stage floor, sometimes at the edge of the runway, and they talk. Not press release talking. Not PR-approved talking. They talk the way you talk to a friend at 2 a.m. when everything feels impossible. In 2019, at their Wembley concert, RM stood in front of 90,000 people and said, and I'm paraphrasing here, that there were times he wasn't sure they deserved any of this. That there were nights on tour where he sat alone in a hotel room questioning everything. That army was the thing that kept pulling him back. He didn't say this with performance polish. His voice broke. He stopped mid-sentence. He looked down. And 90,000 people in that stadium, from every country, every background, every age, went completely silent to hold space for him. Think about what that means for a moment. Here is one of the most successful musicians on the planet. He has sold out Wembley twice. He has spoken at the United Nations. He is, by every external metric, at the peak of human achievement. And he is standing on a stage, in front of nearly 100,000 people, and admitting that he felt worthless. And in doing so, he gave every single person in that crowd permission to feel the same way without shame. That is not entertainment. That is healing. Suga, who is famously quieter, more reserved, has stood on stage and talked about his mental health journey with a directness that most people can't even manage in a therapist's office. He has talked about the period before BTS became successful, when he was sleeping on the floor of a small apartment, eating ramen every day, wondering if music would ever be enough to survive on. He said, I was so afraid. But I kept going. And I want you to keep going too. In a world where men, especially men in the public eye, are still pressured to project strength and silence, hearing that from someone like Suga is not just touching. It is genuinely radical. J-Hope, the member the fandom often calls the sunshine of the group for his relentless positivity, gave a speech at one concert where he said that the smile people see is real, but it wasn't always easy to find. That some mornings he had to choose joy the way you choose to get out of bed. Deliberately. Even when everything in you wants to stay under the covers. Jimin has cried on stage more times than we can count. Not quietly, loudly, openly, without trying to stop it. And every single time, the crowd doesn't laugh. They don't look away. They cry with him. Because that's what BTS has built. Not a fan base. A community where it is safe to feel things fully. Here is something that every person who has ever attended a BTS concert describes the same way, regardless of language, regardless of country, regardless of age. The moment the lights go out, and 90,000 army bombs light up in unison. Purple. As far as the eye can see. There is a reason BTS members have said, in multiple interviews, at multiple concerts, that this is the moment they lose it. Not the cheering. Not the chanting of their names. The purple ocean. Because what that ocean represents is not just fandom. It's loyalty. It's years of people saying, I see you. I'm still here. Through all of it, the controversies, the setbacks, the military service, I am still here. And for the members, who started as 7 unknown boys from a small company that nearly went bankrupt, who were told by the industry they would never make it, who performed in venues so small they could count the audience members by hand, seeing that ocean must feel like something no human language has a word for. In 2021, when BTS performed Permission to Dance on stage at SoFi Stadium, it was their first in-person concert since the pandemic began. Nearly 2 years had passed since they had stood in front of a live audience. The members have described the moment they walked on stage that night as one of the most overwhelming experiences of their lives. Jin, the oldest member, known for his humor, his warmth, his ability to lighten any room, stood at the edge of the stage and looked out. And he said nothing for almost a full minute. He just looked. And then he covered his face with his hands. He was not performing that moment. That was a man being completely undone by gratitude. And the crowd, 50,000 people, screamed for him. Not for the song. Not for the performance. For him. As a person. As someone they had missed. That is not a typical artist-fan relationship. That is something else entirely. Researchers who study parasocial relationships, the psychological bonds people form with public figures, have noted that BTS occupies an unusual space. Most celebrities maintain a careful distance from their audience. BTS has systematically dismantled that distance. Through Weverse messages sent at 3 a.m. Through vlogs filmed in their dorm rooms. Through reality shows that captured their fights, their failures, their most unguarded moments. By the time an ARMY member walks into a BTS concert, they don't feel like they're seeing a celebrity. They feel like they're seeing someone they know. Someone who knows them back. And that changes everything about what happens in that stadium. Some of the most emotionally powerful concert moments in BTS history were never planned. In 2018, during their Love Yourself tour, the venue's technical systems had a brief failure during a performance. The backing track cut out. The lights flickered. For a split second, everything stopped. And without missing a single beat, BTS kept singing. A cappella. In perfect harmony. As if the silence was exactly what was supposed to happen. The crowd, which had gasped in that initial moment of silence, erupted. Not because it was a planned surprise. But because it was proof of something real. These 7 people are not dependent on production to move you. They can stand in an empty room and still hold you completely. There was a concert in the rain, an outdoor performance where the weather turned mid-show. The production team reportedly offered to pause. BTS refused. They performed in the rain, soaked through their clothes, laughing and spinning like they had planned it that way all along. The footage from that night, of tens of thousands of fans raising their army bombs into a rainy sky, refusing to leave, is one of the most beautiful things I have ever seen at a live event. Because it said something. It said, this is not a transaction. You did not come here just for the show. You came here for something that weather cannot cancel. And then, there is Busan. October 15, 2022. The yet-to-come in Busan concert. BTS's final full performance together before military service would begin pulling them apart, one by one. Nobody officially announced it that way. There was no press release that said, this is the last time you will see them all together for years. But ARMY knew. The members knew. And there was something in the air that night that made it impossible to pretend otherwise. Over 100,000 people filled the outdoor venue in Busan, BTS's hometown city. Tickets had been free. And yet people traveled from Japan, from the United States, from Brazil, from across Europe, just to stand there. Just to be present for this. The concert ran through their greatest hits. Through the songs that had defined a decade. Boy with Love. DNA. Fire. Dynamite. Songs that had played in bedrooms during heartbreaks. Songs that had played in hospital rooms. Songs that had been the soundtrack to some of the most important moments in millions of people's lives. And then, the final song. Yet to come. A song whose chorus declares, with full conviction, the best moment is yet to come. 7 men. Standing on a stage. Knowing they were about to be separated. Knowing the chapter was closing. Singing, with tears streaming down their faces, that the best was still ahead. I have watched the footage of that final performance more times than I can count. And every single time, without exception, I cannot get through it without breaking. Not because it was sad. But because of what it took to stand there and mean those words. To look at 100,000 people who love you, who are terrified of losing you, who have built pieces of their identity around your music, and to say to them, don't be afraid. The best is still coming. That is not a performance. That is a promise. Jin entered the military first. Then J-Hope. Then RM. Then Suga. Then V, Jimin, and Jungkook. One by one, they stepped away, not into obscurity, but into a mandatory chapter of Korean life that every Korean man must face. And ARMY waited. The way you wait for something you know is worth waiting for. So, why do BTS concerts make thousands of people cry? The easy answer is, because they're good. Because the music is great, the production is stunning, the performances are world-class. All of that is true. But the real answer is something older and simpler than any of that. Humans are not built to be alone. We are built to gather. To sing. To grieve together and celebrate together and sit in silence together when words run out. For most of human history, we had rituals for that. Fires we gathered around. Songs we all knew the words to. Shared stories that reminded us who we were. In the modern world, fragmented, digital, lonely in ways we don't always have language for, those rituals are harder to find. BTS concerts are a ritual. They are a place where you can show up as exactly who you are, whatever language you speak, whatever country you're from, whatever you've been carrying that week, and be received. Be seen. Be held, in the way that a crowd of people singing the same words at the same time can hold you.